Welcome to the City Press studios as elections are about to unfold. My name is Rapule Tabane. I'm the assistant editor and political editor at City Press. I'm with the editor-in-chief, Mondli Makhaya. We're just here to share some thoughts about what we think of this election process and how we think it will unfold. Welcome, Mr. Makhaya.
Greetings.
Okay. My first question to you is, what is your assessment of the election campaigning season so far, up to where we are now when voting is about to start?
Well, it has been probably one of the most exciting election campaigns since 1994, if not the most exciting one, for the simple reason that you have so many new parties on the stage right now. You have the possibility of the governing party being taken below 50% and not achieving an outright majority. And you have the possibility of the ANC losing KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, and you have the possibility of the Democratic Alliance not making it with an outright majority in the Western Cape. So it's been a very competitive election. So I think it actually has been very exciting. I think we were worried about the fact that the ANC taking off very slowly, their campaign not really getting off the ground as quickly and as effectively as it used to, that it would kind of like dampen this election campaign. But actually there's been a lot of electricity in the air.
Okay, all right. That's very interesting. Also, to know that it's also been a very peaceful campaign so far. You know, with all of these new parties, with the new rivalry between the ANC and MK, there were fears that the early tensions could lead to some level of violence, but there hasn't been any violence. And like you say, there's so much that makes this election season exciting. But I feel like we'll properly be able to judge once we've seen the turnout as well. Because my question is whether we've been able, the election season has been able to draw in ordinary voters to be as excited about the election season as the politicians have been, as we in the media space have been. What is your sense? Do you think the IEC itself has said we've registered more voters than ever before? Do you think that's an indication that the turnout could also be a good one?
Look, I think there was certainly a lot more interest this time because it was so competitive, because you had a lot of new voices, people offering something new. They were offering something different in terms of how politics is done. The people were offering something new in terms of like fresh ideas. So I think that probably got some excitement. I remember at the end of the second registration weekend, the IEC saying that to your point about the most number of people registered, that the take-up among people between 20 and 29, among young people, was actually kind of like it exceeded their expectations. And this was against the background of people believing that the young people were losing interest in politics, losing interest in what was happening around them. So I think that was very encouraging, because those people are going to grow up into adults and to seasoned voters. And I think once you've tasted the vote, the tendency is that you are going to want to go back, especially kind of like if your vote is going to be making a difference. I think what jaded people in the past and what saw voter turnout go down was the fact that people would say, man, we know who's winning anyway. So people just tended to go away, to stay at home and braai and drink or just or go and picnic with their families. So I think people are feeling the possibility that their vote can actually make a change. So I think even if the voter turnout is not as high as we would like it to be, I think people are kind of like, the optimists are saying 66% would be like the ideal turnout that would prove that actually there's interest in this election. But I think So long as it does not continue the downward trajectory that it has been doing, I think this election would have been good, and I think the democracy would have been healthier. And then I would like to see that kind of like around when you get to 2029, which will be even more competitive than this one, then I think there'll be a lot more interest. Then I think there we will start to see the voter turnout climb again, because people again will be feeling that I can change a government, my voice actually will be heard. So I think that what my takeaway from this election is that it has got South Africans exercised about the health of their democracy. People are not, as I said earlier on, are not as jaded as before. Even those who say they're not going to vote, but they have an opinion, a strong opinion about where things are going.
That's right. I really can't help but agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and then if I can just throw a question to you about, I mean, like you've covered so many elections since the beginning of democracy, whether it's local government elections or the kind of like or the national elections. How would you characterize the behavior of the party leaders? I mean, like in different elections, like there were promises made, and obviously a lot of promises not kept. How would you characterize firstly the messaging by the parties and their leaders, and also the manifestos? Were they speaking to what South Africans are concerned about, or was it all pie in the sky?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think for the ANC in particular, it was really easy to ridicule them, because people were saying, in 1994 you said you would you promised 1 million jobs. In 1999 you did the same. 2004, 2009, 2014, 2019. So people were kind of asking, why must we believe you now? And I think they were very honest to say, give us a chance. And they also leaned very strongly on a message that says this country needs stability, and you can only have stability if the same governing party is in place, which I think is not necessarily true, because I think if you've got a strong bureaucracy that's stable, that's not affiliated to factions of any governing party, this government can still run without the ANC. So it really has been a difficult election for the ANC, because people were saying, what's new? What new message can you sell to us? And they didn't really have any other than to say, give us a chance. We've just stabilized. We went through 9 years of state capture, and we are putting back the brakes in place. And yeah, we need another 5 years to complete that. And then for the rest of the other parties, especially the official opposition, the DA, their message was, this country is falling apart, there's been load shedding, crime is out of hand, infrastructure everywhere is crumbling, so we actually need to rescue this country. I think that is a message that resonates. But however, the problem with the DA is that much as they're able to point to the good governance that they've effected in the Western Cape and
supposedly
and in other places, they haven't been able to touch people's heartstrings. There's still a level at which people view the DA in a certain way, and there have been events to justify those kind of viewpoints when a lot of their black leaders left the party. So they still have work to do to win people's hearts and minds, because I think their message is a bit cold, just to say we've done well, so vote for us. But I think they just needed to do more. And then I think the EFF, which is our third largest party, they've done well in the last two national elections, although their growth in the last one was just marginal. And I think they have difficulties because, for example, in the last elections, their biggest share of the votes came from KwaZulu-Natal, where they got 350,000 voters. But now KZN is a completely different province compared to then because of the entrance of the MK, which has eaten into both EFF and ANC support. But also the EFF, I don't think that they've sold us anything new from what they've sold us in the last two elections. It really just been the same. So I think their performance really will depend on how much of that 350,000 voters in KZN they're still able to keep. I have a view about manifestos. I think manifestos are important, and serious people look at policy proposals. But I think ultimately, when it gets down to the last few days before elections, it's less about manifestos, but more about a party and a politician's appeal to the population. And I think that's where we are, because if you've seen on social media, a lot of people have also still been confused about who to vote for. There's a lot of that discussion about the fact that I do want to vote, but I honestly don't know who to vote for. And I don't know what to say to those people, except to say that there's close to 50 political parties on the ballot. If you don't want to vote for the ANC, DA, EFF, IFP, or any of the big parties, please do go ahead and still vote for one of the smaller parties, because a party is not always, a vote is not always an endorsement of any one party. It can be a vote against another party. So you can use a vote to punish a party by giving the vote to someone else. So the one thing that we don't need now is for people to say, I'm not going to vote because I don't know who to vote for.
I've been having with a lot of people kind of like who are singing that song, I don't know who to vote for. Yes, you can be undecided, but it cannot be a situation of like, therefore I am not going to vote. We are spoiled for choice in this election. There are, as you pointed out, there are the legacy parties that have been around a lot longer that you can still go and vote for. Some because of you've always voted for them and you believe in what they're saying, but also there's also just some exciting new voices that you can also throw your votes at. You've got independents even that you can give your vote to, but it's your voice. It is the power that we wield as individual citizens, and every vote counts. I think it was in our interview with Helen Zille that we carried the other day, where she pointed out about just how narrowly she won the mayorship of Cape Town when she became mayor of Cape Town, and how narrowly she also won the premiership of the Western Cape. So I mean, like, that is actually, because those votes actually, every single vote matters, and I wish people would get to understand that. Just want to go back to your comment of earlier on about the lack of violence, and it's a pity that we actually have to discuss violence in the first place in the run-up to elections, but we do come from a history of kind of political violence in South Africa. But we can take great satisfaction from the fact that when MK was announced that MK was going to be contesting these elections, and there were lots of predictions that kind of like, given the fact that its stronghold was likely to be KwaZulu-Natal, that there would be tensions would be ratcheted up, and then we saw some clashes at the beginning, kind of like some scuffles, and people thought, oh, it has started. But actually, it has been a very peaceful election campaign. I mean, it might be speaking to our maturing as a country. But I mean, like, there have been worrying signs in the past few days and the past 2 weeks or so, I think, with the with that particular new party actually making noises that are not in keeping with the spirit of a democratic election. And I think we all have to be alert, kind of like on election day, and in the weeks, in the days of the counting and post-counting, about basically kind of like the ratcheting up of emotions by some leaders of MKP about how much they are going to get, and if they don't get their way, this is what they might do. Let's just hope that that message does not actually translate into some negative behavior on the ground, and that the security forces have got their ducks in a row to prevent any untoward behavior.
Okay. All right. You actually just went into the next question I was going to ask about what's your view about the entrance of the MKP into our political landscape? Because you and me 10 months ago, we had absolutely no idea that there would be a new party led by Zuma contesting the elections, firstly established, secondly contesting elections. And it has come, and there have been some polls that have projected it to get double-digit percentages in these elections. I don't know how accurate those polls are, but I just want to hear your views about their entrance into our political space.
Well, I think the entrance of any new player into the political space is a good thing. It's so long as it's a legitimate party, it's registered with the IEC, and it subscribes to all the rules that kind of like that govern political activity in a country. So I think that MKP coming into the space and shaking things up, it's been a good thing. My only concern with them is that their rhetoric has been anti-constitution, anti the institutions of South Africa, and they had in their rhetoric they've been making threats about what would happen if they don't get their way. If you are to play this game, whether it's football, whether it's rugby, cricket, or whether you are gambling at the casino, you have to play by those rules. And even more so when it comes to the political space, because we are affecting the livelihoods and lives of many, many people. We are affecting the country, we are affecting the economy of the country, we are affecting our own perceptions of ourselves as a country and international perceptions of South Africa. The one thing that we've always had in South Africa is that our elections have been free and fair and not questioned. People will quibble about little things, but generally all people who play in this space have always respected the institution of the IEC, and the IEC has also respected the will of the electorate and also basically kind of like, and they've understood their duty to the electorate, and all political parties have played ball with each other. And at the end of the election, everybody walks away and prepares for the next election. But my worry about MKP is that it may introduce a very bad poison into our body politic by, first of all, questioning the legitimacy of our constitutional state, and then secondly, going out of its way to undermine the institutions of our republic.
Yeah.
And I think that Jacob Zuma, in as much as Jacob Zuma wants to still continue to be a player in the society, but you just get the sense that he is driven more by a sense of vengeance against the current president of the ANC and as well as the NPA. He's almost kind of like behaving in the same way as Donald Trump is behaving in the United States. That I will kind of like, the only correct result is a result that favors me, and also using his candidacy to stay out of jail, and I've just got that sense about this. That's the real reason why Jacob Zuma is doing this, and not because he necessarily wants to advance an alternative political point of view.
Yeah. Either I win or else the elections are rigged. Yeah. That's a very unfortunate message. And sorry.
No. Go ahead.
Yeah, my frustration with the MK party has been that in this platform where we are sitting, we've had leaders of over 13 political parties come and discuss their views, their manifestos, their plans after elections. And we've also reached out to the MKP to try and invite them to come and do the same interview, but they've not been willing to come here. And I think in a fair world, it would have been great to have them here so that we can posit some of these questions, some of these concerns about them. But they also have a very obscure structure that where we as political reporters have never really come to understand, because there's only the spokesperson, Mr. Ntlamulo Ndlela, and then there's the president. We are not sure who else we can speak to, and where Mr. Zuma has made himself available for interviews, there have been issues with the SABC. Apparently, he invited them to come and interview them, to come and interview him. And then when they arrived, he spoke for 6 minutes and didn't allow them to pose any questions. And the SABC decided that that was not worth airing, because he was also repeating the same things that he had said in the rally before. And I think that's a challenge that we want to pose to the MKP, that you guys need to do better on your communication. There's so much that South Africa wants to understand about your party. There's so much questions that South Africa wants to ask your leader. There's so much that you want to understand about your post-election plans, and we really think you can improve.